it's an important day.
It is, sir.
We've been having a few problems in Yonkers, especially at this exact location. You know, we had the shooting last week, we had multiple incidents here, and I'm hearing that you are working on having a group that will address these issues actually before they happen.
Correct.
Proactive.
Yes.
But you always talk to me about be proactive.
Yes.
That's your motto.
It is.
So, Commissioner, tell us, what is it?
So we're taking our precision policing model and applying it to this area. So through precision policing, we have identified that this has had a high uptick in gun violence. We had a murder at 286 Ashburton on October 27th. So it's a real concern for us that this seems to be somewhat of a hotspot for group violence. So what we do with all these type of things is we're trying to triage the situation. And what we found we want to do here is we want to have a portfolio of strategies, not one or two things, and hope they work. It's a blend of strategies. It's a very holistic approach. We have our gang unit out here that's available on call. When they're not working, even if they're not working, they'll come in if there's an incident. We have overt and covert surveillance. We have our mobile command center. We have the our community affairs people doing outreach and doing parking walks, as well as our uniformed officers doing parking walks. So it's very important to say we don't want to do like we used to do 20 years ago, where we would occupy an area, write summonses and do all kinds of things. What we're looking to do is solve the problem. We're looking to bring the violence down. The residents of Whitney Young deserve better than they're getting. So by doing this, by doing all these different strategies, crime prevention through environmental design, cutting trees, raising the canopy so the cops have a better sight line inside, improving lighting, things like that. These are all helpful strategies that bring it all together. But the most important piece is the work that we do with our nonprofits. Today we were lucky enough to have Reverend Jim Bostic from the Nepperhan Community Center to stand with us, and Lucrea Ortiz from the YMCA. We would far rather divert kids from prison to a wholesome youth program and get them on a different track than we have to arrest. Now, there's certainly a reason for arrest, and we have to do it because we cannot have people shooting each other. We can't have it. We won't tolerate it. I don't think there's anybody you're going to bump into to raise your hand and say, I think that's okay. So we do have the enforcement component. But the multi-layered approach of adding CEPTED, community outreach, enforcement, federal partners, technology, and of course our not-for-profits like the YMCA and the Nepperhan Community Center is giving us, we think, the best chance we can to keep the violence down. And that's what we're looking for.
Now, Commissioner, what can society, or what does Yonkers do to prevent those kids even from joining the gangs?
Well, first of all, that's a great question. So the question was, what can we do to prevent? A couple things. One is, we have a great relationship with our school district and the Board of Education. They have information that we might not have about what's going on in the schools. We may have information that they may not have, what's going on in the street. We combine to find out which kids are under the most duress. They're in the most crisis. And then we try to come up with a plan to help them before it turns into an arrest situation or a state prison sentence. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I have to say, the older gang members are exploiting some of the raise the age laws, where they understand that the kids that are 15, 16, 17 years old are not going to be really held accountable for carrying a loaded gun. We've had incidents where kids 2 and 3 times have been caught carrying loaded guns, and they just continue to get sent to family court and then released. To me, that's a recipe for disaster, because a kid that's 16 years old, very impressionable. Older guys are taking advantage of these younger kids and using them and exploiting them in ways they shouldn't. That's another way we can stop it. And asking the older gang members, you have to think of the future. You have to think about what's right for everybody. And you can't keep, creating this pipeline of kids that is going to engage in group violence. We have to move them to a more wholesome path through the YMCA or the Nepperhan Community Center or a litany of other not-for-profits that we work with. So
now, what about for the parents? Do the parents have any kind of a path to call someone? Say, listen, I'm having a problem. I don't want my son arrested. I don't want my son arrested, but I want to take a precaution to avoid that from happening.
So what we're talking about right now is how to intervene before we come to tragedy of a shooting or someone arrested for a shooting. because you're ruining, 2 lives are ruined. One is going to prison for the shooting, the other one is either seriously injured or dead. So how do we stop this? That's where the not-for-profits come in. The fact that we are embedded with the YMCA and the Nepperhan Community Center and all these other not-for-profits, we can make referrals to the parents to say, there are programs, there are alternatives, you have help out here. We are willing to help you, we want to help you. Don't try to carry this burden yourself. Try to reach out and pull all resources possible to try to get us over the goal line where we're reducing gun violence and we're keeping everybody safe.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate
Thank you, sir.
it.